operate in truth, right? Operate in truth. Tell the truth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Huddle Up Gators, where we talk to Gator fans about their fandom and help try to build community within Gator Nation. Today, I am here with Ben Chase, UF's Director of NIL Strategy. How are you doing today, Ben?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. And like I said before I hopped on, if I'm moving around, it's because I'm standing on a balance board right now for a little ankle rehab.
Oh, man, what happened with your ankle?
It's just I don't know. I've been overworking, trying to slim down for tailgate season. Everyone's worried about wedding season, and I'm over here like, honestly, there's more people I care to hang out with at tailgates, so I need to look good for those. So I think I just overtrained a little bit, but I think it's at about 90%, so we're on the way up now.
Awesome. Sounds good. And for those that don't know, I first met Ben at Gators Day at Busch Gardens, Tampa. Do you know if we're gonna have another one of those down the road?
Yeah, yeah.
I'll
So
have to.
we've had two, and the one in the spring was way more successful than the one in the fall last year. So I think it'll be a continuous thing, and we're going to learn and grow from it for sure. So I would say it should happen again. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later, but just a quick question. Do the players that come out for that, whatever sport they're in, do they get compensated through NIL for the events they take part in?
Yeah, so there's different tiers, right? So if you want to go to Busch Gardens, all you have to do is promote the day, and you'll get a free ticket as for promoting Gators Day. And then we had the panels discussion there, and those athletes were compensated on top of that, whether it's financially, free food, fast passes, like a lot of different opportunities for them as well. So, I mean, we would not be able to do that part of the promotion of Gators Day without NIL. So it's a really cool little tie-in that we're able to do now. And we're able to also help facilitate that now as the rules have changed.
Right. And that's it was a very good time, and I'm a big theme park guy, so absolutely love it. So let's go ahead and get into your story. Ben, how did you become a fan of the Florida Gators?
Yeah, so I mean, growing up in Orlando, Florida, I never thought I was going to go to college. Actually, my mom and dad um, didn't ever complete college, and I one of my cousin actually went to Florida, and he majored in chemistry, and that kind of and he's a few years older than me, so that kind of was on my radar. And growing up, I was a big basketball is my favorite sport, and obviously the back-to-back championship teams were kind of put me on, and right, we're just south of Gainesville, right? So it kind of became a thing. I went my first Florida game for football. I remember going to was in Orlando on New Year's, so either the Citrus Bowl or something similar. And since then I kind of grew into it. And then I didn't go to college until I was 21. I went to Valencia in Orlando, and the only place I applied to as a transfer was Florida. So at that point in my life, I was all in on the Gators. And when I got here, I was indoctrinated, and now I'm like 10 toes down for all sports. When I was here as a student, I only went to football and men's, women's basketball, and I went to one soccer game. But now since I've been here, I've been to every sporting event outside of cross country. But I did watch a 5K, and one of our athletes said that counts. So I've been a in the stands for every sport that we have on campus at this point.
That's pretty awesome. What is your favorite for the sports you didn't watch when you were a student? What is your favorite now to go watch?
Oh, that's hard. I'll say this: I never watched lacrosse in my life ever. Period. Full stop. And I'm addicted to that sport. Softball is also one of the fastest sports on campus. It's a clean 2 hours. And gymnastics is we won national championships when I was here, and it's probably the most electric sport in the spring. So those are probably in the top. Track is electric too, and so I would say probably those four. But I also say those are the ones where I also don't feel like I'm working. I can actually be a fan in the audience stands. Some of the other sports, I'm usually networking, shaking hands. So I like to be able to go there and unwind. Like tonight, I'm going to go unwind and see Twisters and turn my phone off. So those are the games and the sports I enjoy because I can unplug and just be a fan of our athletes.
Awesome. Awesome. So, I guess, you've told us you didn't have much of a family history outside your cousin that went to UF, really became indoctrinated when you got on campus. About what years that? I'm sorry if I missed that.
So I got to Florida fall of 2012. So we went 11-1. Our one loss was to Georgia when Jordan Reed fumbled in the end zone.
Yeah.
And so we went from 11-1 to the next year being 4-8. So I graduated, we were 4-8, but our men's basketball team went to the Final Four. So it's kind of like not a push, but at the same time, at least we had some good sports. I would say the year before, I mean, that 2012 football season, I mean, that team, we were the number 3 team in the country, going into the bowl season. And, man, we really had a shot to do something there. So, yeah, that was a good time in Florida history. But, obviously football has been, kind of go up and down since then. And then basketball has been, up and down as well. So I think this year we're going to surprise some people in football, and basketball should be pretty competitive, picking up where they left off last season.
For sure. So you talked about, you're getting ready for tailgate season. What's it like for you tailgating at a Florida game? Where do you tailgate? What's your favorite part of that? Do you have any tailgating traditions?
Yeah, so last year, was my first year here at Florida in this role. And, I was kind of feeling out like, what do I work? Do I do other things? And it's kind of a 50-50 blend. I go try to say hi to the group at Harmonic Woods tailgate. And, they probably have one of the most electric atmospheres on game day. And then my business fraternity actually has a tailgate in the main lot, like where Gator Walk is. And
Okay.
it's the dad of one of the girls that were in my business fraternity. They have they tailgate on one of the big Bull Gator lots, and so I go there. They have catered, usually either Four Rivers or Miapa and Krispy Kreme, and then they have a full bar with a bartender. But it's free drinks, so that's kind of a cool. It's gotten a little rowdy, so they've had to reel in the access to the drinks. So I go to those two and say hi, and then I try to meet up with some donors or boosters if I can, but not step on anyone's toes. But yeah, that's kind of my game day tradition this last year. But I'm always open to saying hi to other people. So if you have any suggestions or any of the listeners want me to come by their tailgate, more than happy to come by and say hi and hang out.
Awesome. For sure. Now I've got to say, which do you, and you don't have to answer, but which do you prefer, your business fraternity tailgate or Harmonic Woods?
I've been going to the business fraternity one for many years. Like that's the one I get in tailgate shape for, because I'm going to see all my friends I've known for 12 years now, right? So like I can't come sloppy. I got to look a little clean. I got to lose a little weight, right? We're 45 days out as of today, as of recording this. I don't know when it will go live from the Miami game. And my goal is to be another down 10 pounds, because the camera adds 10 or 20. So I would say that, I go to both. I start at Harmonic Woods and I end at the alumni, or my alumni one. And mostly because that's where I need to go get food and sober up a little bit.
Okay. And I've got to ask, in your time watching Gators football, what has been your favorite memory of Gators football?
Man, that's a good question. Like live or in general?
In general, it doesn't even have to be like, hey, here's a game I really enjoyed for this question. It could be, hey, I really enjoyed hanging out with my friend, X at this game, and we had a great time because of whatever.
Yeah, I'll say this. Like, I think my first road trip that I went on in college was to Baton Rouge, LSU. and we lost that game. But like that really sparked, a little bit about myself in road trips and like going with my business fraternity. It was like 4 of us. I get in Airbnb, I think at the time or whatever. I don't know if Airbnb even existed back then. Probably just some hotel that was really small, like right off Bourbon Street. Going out and seeing Baton Rouge or seeing Bourbon Street, like all Gators, like all Gator fans. They had flags everywhere. They know how to host, and then just going to the game the next day. And that was my first time in New Orleans, first time in Baton Rouge, and like that game, oh, man, we had a shot in that game too. Like I think that's probably one of my favorite memories because it brought everything together. It was my second year at Florida. Again, I was a transfer. Our team, like we didn't have the best year that year, but like we didn't care. We were together, making a memory. So that's probably up there. A game that we won that's probably memorable is I went to the Kentucky game when Felipe went down and we were down, I think 11, and Trask came back to lead us to that win, and that was awesome because like their fans were front running and loud, and they got really quiet at the grocery store, Kroger Stadium. They call it the grocery store. So that's probably another one that's up there. Those are 2 top of mind right now for sure.
Awesome. And I guess, well, before I ask that, who would you say in your time watching the Gators has been your favorite player? And it doesn't necessarily mean the best player, but someone that you particularly have enjoyed watching, or maybe even as director of NIL, someone that you've been able to interact with?
Specifically football or any sport?
Any sport.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll start with like as a fan before I was, where I'm at now. I mean, really, really loved Dominique Easley when he was on campus. Just the energy he brought to, our defense. And I'm a Bucks fan, and I grew up Sean King and Brad Johnson or my quarterbacks back then. But I grew up on Buccaneers defense. So I really, and I quit football in high school because I didn't like getting hit, but I played receiver. As in I was on the team until the rosters really mattered, and then I quit. But but I have a love for like just energy on defense. So any D lineman that walked in the stadium with a Chucky doll, I was all for. And then in other sports, Skylar Wallace and Leanne Wong, Skylar Wallace, the all-time leading runs hitter in D1 history for softball. And Leanne Wong, she's nicknamed the CEO. She's a replacement for the gymnastics Olympic team this summer. Those, they've gone all in on NIL and building a brand, and leaning on me when needed, and they've become like my little sisters. So I say those 2 currently, and then on our team right now, Justice Boone is probably like he's just so genuine, and he went through an injury, and there's no one I'm rooting harder for to have an impact here than Justice Boone.
Awesome. And it's good to hear those good stories that come through, because so many times, in life or, in sports, it's not necessarily the good stories that make it through. So talking to someone like you is like, hey, here's some people that are just genuinely good players or generally good people as players, because sometimes we don't know as fans on the outside. We just think, hey, this is a good player or whatnot. But it's great to hear, that there are, good people out there representing the university.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, like all 3 of those, like I would hire for a job, and whatever I would never bet against Leanne Wong. I would never bet against Skylar Wallace, and I would never bet against Justice. Like they just care. One, they would love being Gators, and I don't know if you want to clip that part that Skylar Wallace's like last interview as a Gator. Like it's one of the most powerful like pieces to sell this program as a whole. And Justice, like I said, he's been through a lot, but he's always stayed positive, and he's always going to have a smile on his face. And Leanne, she's a supernova, and she's practicing medicine and got she was just an academic All-American, and she has a grand slam in gymnastics, or a gym slam, which means she's gotten a 10 on all four rotations, which I think there's only like 20 people that have done that ever. So that's just that's all time stuff right there.
Awesome. So moving back to football just a little bit, what would you say your favorite game that you've experienced or watched would be?
Gators football specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I was here as a student, we played South Carolina, and South Carolina came in here ranked. I think they were ranked 2 or maybe 7. I don't know. We were both. It was a top 10 matchup.
Yeah,
And
probably 2012.
2012, yeah. And I just remember we jumped on them so hard. Our defense, man, was special back then. And I think we ended up winning like 44-3 or 44 something. And that was just, and I'm someone that likes close games. But that one, that was the statement game that year. 2012 Gators football. Now I got to see what the final score was because it's going to bother me.
Oh yeah, it was like 44-16 or maybe worse. I off the top of my head, 44 sticks out to me.
44-11. So I think it was 44-3, and they must have got a touchdown and went for 2. Like that game. And then what's funny is Driscoll only threw for 93 yards, but that game was just so great. Oh, and it was in 2 weeks before that when we played LSU, and that was like a rock fight. We won 14-6. I think they had the ball late in that game to tie, and we ended up stuffing them to win the game. Like that 3 weeks, because it was LSU and then we went to Vandy and then South Carolina. Those 3 games leading up to the Georgia game, I don't think I've ever been higher on the Gators, and since that 3-week period, man. But yeah, that South Carolina game, people questioned us against LSU, and we came in there. They were number 7 at the time, and we came and smacked them in the mouth.
Yeah, definitely, that was a great period. I remember 2012 LSU. That's where Muschamp put in 6 or 7 offensive linemen and went extra heavy to try and run the game out with Mike Gillislee, and then ended up pulling it out that way.
Mike Gillislee, probably one of the most underrated Gators of all time. I think he's the last 1,000-yard rusher we had, and was a workhorse for those teams.
Yeah, for sure. He was stuck in that weird era where he only had a year or 2 as the guy, came in after Rainey and Demps, but then right after him you have Scarlett and Kelvin Taylor and some of those guys that Gator fans remember a little bit more. And unfortunately, he shouldn't, but Gillislee, I think, gets lost in that shuffle just a little bit.
Yeah, those teams, he was the workhorse. Looking at that season, he had 1,100 yards, and the next closest rusher was Jeff Driscoll with 400. That was, Matt Jones was the next back, and the next year he had a bigger year, I think. Yeah, so that's a long answer to your question, but yeah, those teams, that was my heart. Luchez Purifoy and that defense, you never knew what was going to happen back then.
Man, that's a name I've not heard in quite a while, but that's why I enjoy bringing people like yourself on, because you never know what names you're going to hear from the past and be like, that was a great guy. So
yeah, listen to this defense. You had, Dante Fowler Jr., Jonathan Bowler, Dominique Easley. Man, that was just I just love defense, and that team was just so fun on the I called our defense our scoring offense.
for sure, because our offense didn't do too much, even in that South Carolina 44-point game. I think if you look it up, it's some ridiculous stat of how many yards or something we have, because we got 2 turnovers inside the 10. For sure.
Yeah, we had 183 total yards, but 43 points.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, Florida has a lot of insane, for good and bad, things that's like, man, I can't believe this happened. But with that said, I also like to ask a few just fun questions. Feel free to answer however you would want. But the first fun question: what is your favorite uniform combo for Gators football?
I like. It depends. I like the icy whites, but I like the all orange when we go to LSU. I love the all. I don't care what anyone says. The all orange when we go to LSU is so it just pops in their stadium. So those are the two. I mean, the icy whites. My favorite helmets are the white with the orange script. Um, those can do no wrong. But I'm sure that that's gonna shake some feathers. But I don't know, man. It looks clean.
For sure. And then the next little fun one that I have for you is, who is the rival that you like the least?
I mean, Georgia is that's pretty easy to say. Like, if I had to rank my hatred for schools, it's Georgia, and then like Florida State, and then there's like a big gap, and then it's like I don't know, Miami. I don't even consider them a rival really. LSU's up there. LSU's trending upwards because of other sports like baseball and gymnastics, not just football. Even in women's basketball too. Like, I just think that they're a program that like we could be doing just as well in those other sports, and they just come out of nowhere. Um, yeah, and then out of our conference, I just don't like Ohio State, but I know they're going to do really well this year, which is frustrating.
And the other question I was going to ask, and then I realized, man, this is the guy who has actually done a lot of this. It would be, if you could go to any away game, what would it be? But something we've not brought up is you are current world record holder. Could you tell the listeners what that record is?
Well, yeah, so it's not an official one, but it's like inside the football world kind of thing because unfortunately Guinness doesn't recognize records on public roads and college sports. But yeah, I went to the most college football games of one season at that time, and then it still holds up as the most for one road trip. So I went to 77 games all on the road, 130, 125 teams, all in one season. I went to all 48 continental U.S. states and D.C. on that trip, and yeah, it was incredible. I slept in my van. Her name's Betty White, 2017 Dodge Grand Caravan. Folded the seats in the back and then camped out. And yeah, so at the time the record was actually I think it was 58, and I ended up going to 77. I could have went to 78. I dropped a game to take kids to a game, and now it's been beaten by a guy who's been doing it now for 7 years in a row. So like I did it one time, one shot, got the record, and I own that. And now it's 90. But again, that's someone who flies to games and drives. Where I was like, I don't. If anyone comes out and goes for 77 in one shot all on the road, I will buy them a beer at the national championship game. I will be there. There was a guy last year who tried to do it, Roger Sherman, and he's a great guy. He worked for Bill Simmons, the Ringer podcast network. He's a national football writer, and he wanted to go to as many games. I think he ended up going to about 60, and he stopped after the first night of a road trip. He called it quits on the road trip part of it. Like, he didn't even make the second game. So that just goes to show you how hard it is to do that. And during that trip, I made it harder on myself just for fun. But yeah, so at 77 games all on the road, I've been all over the place. But to answer your question about what game I wanted to go, I haven't been to Knoxville. I haven't been to Neyland. And I know this coming season we'll be going there, and they haven't announced it yet, but I've been told they're going to be their checkerboard game. So it would be awesome to leave that place with a big road dub, and that just quiet that atmosphere of 100 something thousand. I won't be at Austin because I'll have a wedding. But I do want to try to go to Starksville too, because I actually haven't been there either. So it's surprising, like two of the three road games this year, I haven't been to either stadium.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, and this is just an aside, if you also have the record for most times seeing Utah without going to Rice Eccles in a stadium.
Yeah, I know. I saw them like 5 times that season. That was nuts. I mean, And then I finally went to see Utah when we played them the next year in Rice Eccles. But yeah, that was a running theme. And I think they were 0-2 in the first 2 games because I saw them play here and they lost. And then I saw them play at the Rose Bowl against UCLA and they lost that game. And then they finally won at Wazoo on a Thursday night. So that was kind of fun. And then I saw them play against USC in the Pac-12 championship game and they smacked USC. That was pretty great.
And as far as college football goes, what can you say Florida does better, at least game day atmosphere? What does Florida do better than any place you've been?
I think our fans get loud pretty quick, and I think they're locked in. I think it's a continuous buzz. And I will say, like, our fans also do a good job of being rowdy but polite to most away fans. Very, very welcoming at tailgates. I think there's some traditions out there that our fans want back, and that however that works out, it is what it is. I do think that there's an opportunity at all times to create new traditions, and that's one thing that from an organizational standpoint and our fans is like there's this running thing of like don't tell a Gator fan what to do, like we're like don't tell them what color to wear and don't tell them whatever, like that prevents the fun stuff from happening, and compared to like another school just south of us, like they throw everything against the wall, and they've done a lot of things that our fans will laugh at, but now it's super fun. I mean, the Citronauts jerseys and the UCF jerseys, like they have a lot of fun stuff. The Space U stuff, like they're leaning into being this young, hip. They've tried a lot of stuff, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. But like that's something that I think is an opportunity here that we could kind of lean into. But it takes our fan base being willing to do that. I think how cool would it be if we did a blue out or something, and the whole stadium was blue or orange out. But like again, you can't tell our fans what to do. You can't tell them what to wear. To me, like if you're at a Kentucky game and you're wearing blue, like that doesn't make sense to me, right? So like there's only 2 options at the game, wear white or orange. But if we said, hey, like every Kentucky game that's home, it's gonna be an orange out. Like how could that not be a thing, right? So like little things like that, I think our fan base, it would create some special moments.
Yeah, and it's actually a running gag with me and some of my friends about, Florida tried that back in like the Jim McElwain era. Like, let's try it, and it just didn't work. And then people wearing, like you said, blue to Kentucky. Or this past year, I got to go to Kroger Field for the first time, and when they chant, you probably experienced this, where they chant white and blue back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
All the Gator fans that were yelling blue, I'm like, we've got the ball. Why are we getting louder and making it harder on our offense? Granted, it wasn't the best game either, but it's also like, no, don't need to do that. But anyways.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, like, it's one of those things where, football's supposed to be fun. And, I think it's something where, there's ways to have fun at a game without it always being about the scoreboard,
right.
And that's something that I think we can do better at.
Alrighty. So getting into this, I wanted you to come on and talk about NIL strategy at UF. Since you're the director, I know we have some great things going on right now, and then other NIL opportunities. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure your listeners may have polarizing feelings about NIL, right? Maybe some of them they're the scarlet letters of athletics, college sports, I would say. And NIL, name, image, likeness. Now it's legal. Next in line, whatever acronym you want to use. But I'd say with confidence at Florida, the NIL, the part that people care about is the part that's impacting recruiting, transfers, and all that. And I'd say, we have Florida Victorious, which is our NIL partner, and they do a great job of working directly in line with us to fundraise, to create opportunities, to be out in the community. I mean, right now, SEC Media Days is going on, and they have an event tonight or tomorrow in Austin or in Dallas, like for donors. So, and the coach will be there and other people will be there. So like there's a combination of things. Like there's some collectives that are run by big third parties that run a bunch of them that do a lot of press releases to strategically say, look at us, we're doing all these fun things. That's all well and good because they're trying to get more schools to sign up for them and then take a percentage. Our team and our strategy is like, hey, like we're going to move in silence, be efficient. And it's also one of those things where, if there's an event and it's, $10,000 to get in, like, why are we going to publicly like share that? It may like make our fans not happy or whatever. Like there's different levels to that. And respecting our fan base, right? Where then there's the other side of it, like the fan engagement. If you're a member of Florida Victorious, there's an open tailgate that you can come to, every week, right? So that's like a fun thing that you can do. And I guess I should have mentioned that earlier when we're talking about tailgating. But yeah, so there's that part of it. And then on the other side, the true NIL, like, next year, a lot of the payments are probably going to come in house, and what will move the needle next year are businesses. We need businesses that are willing to use marketing dollars to work with our athletes. So when an athlete comes to Florida, they say, oh, like, I have a PDQ deal or a Adams Ribco deal or something like that's going to be the next wave of the teams that win is lining up, our sponsors with the Gators and having that continuous connection. On the true NIL side, the brand building side, the storytelling side, our athletes kind of have to take the ball on that. There's only two ways to build a brand, either on the court or on social, right? Dollars follow eyes. So you got to be able to build a brand and have eyes on you so you can monetize that. And at Florida, part of my role is to create those opportunities for our athletes to build their brand and tell their story. I think I do an okay job at it. That can always be better. We were nominated for one of the best institutional programs in the country by NIL Summit. So, I think we're doing okay. We can do better. Last thing is, our collective is having a giveaway, a raffle right now, starting at $10. You can win a round trip to see us play in Austin. With tickets, hotel credit. I think they're going to give you like $1,000 for travel, for hotels, flights. So yeah, look, things like that are rev gen. That's the next iteration of NIL, and we're trying to get ahead of it.
Awesome. And definitely important for anyone listening that has not jumped aboard Florida Victorious and or NIL, or if you have a business, help out. It doesn't just help out any sport. I'm sure Ben can tell you it helps out all sports at UF, and the tide raises all boats. Would you say that's pretty accurate, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, rising tide lifts all ships. You can, if you care about a certain sport, you can invest in that certain sport. If you care about track, you can, work with athletes in track. If you care about soccer, or football. Like at this point, it's one of those things where like it's a la carte, right? Like whatever you want, you can get, and winning matters. And I think that what we've seen is a lot of athletes are going to places that have opportunities.
Awesome. Well, Ben, thank you again for taking the time to hop on with me today. Is there any last message you'd like to give the listeners?
If anything, it's, one, if you're a Gator fan who loves the Gators, like you're going to have to accept that NIL is a thing and it's going to be a thing forever. Right. And that's great for our athletes and great for our program. We have really cool opportunities for these athletes, 500 or so on campus. And if you want to be a part of that, you can, whether it's, we have a local Airbnb kind of style, like it's a bed and breakfast company that's leaning into hosting our athletes and promoting it, or just like you want to do a cameo and just have, your son or daughter get a shout out from Graham Mertz or DJ Lagway. Like those are all things you can do now. Lastly, if you're ever in Gainesville or have questions about NIL or the Gators in general, my DMs are open. I answer them the best I can. Daniel knows that.
Yep.
I'm grateful to be on here and using your platform to tell some stories about my love for Florida. I'm one of the only people in this position across the country that went to the school that they work for. I'd say that like it's me, someone at Ohio State, and someone at Georgia, and I think that's about it when it comes to like people that are in my role or similar that actually went to the school. I hope that gives you and your listeners confidence that like I care more than most people.
And it really does. Well, again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for, taking time to explain NIL, telling us your Gator story. Because I think building community is always a great thing. And I think NIL is a great thing for student athletes across all sports. And so, with that said, thank you everyone for listening. And as always, go Gators.
Go Gators. Thanks, guys.